My name is Bob Saudelli. I am a member of the Leominster Historical Commission. Usually on Neighborhood Snapshot, we look at Leominster's past, going back in history. But history is a subject that includes not only times past, events happening today, in the present, in our town, our state, our nation, the world, are a part of history. The future, too, will become part of that area of human knowledge we call history. Today's program, Those Who Serve, it's a special on Neighborhood Snapshot. Today's program deals not so much with the past, but with more recent history, especially matters related to the military and to those who serve and have served our country. We are honored today to welcome to the LATV studios Command Sergeant Major Colleen M. Dickinson of the Army National Guard, the 726th Maintenance Battalion, which is now based out of Leominster. Welcome, Command Sergeant. Command Sergeant Major, I want to get the terms. How do I?
Yes, Command Sergeant Major or Sergeant Major.
Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major. We are very honored to welcome you. And we are also honored to welcome Mr. Richard S. Early. Many of you in Leominster are familiar with Dick Early. He has served well. He is the former Veterans Agent in Leominster. He is now the National Service Officer for the Massachusetts Department of Veterans Services, and he is the President of the Vietnam Veterans of America. And I must say that that is the office that he is most proud of. He mentioned that as he didn't ask me to say that, but I want to share that he is most proud of being the President of the Vietnam Veterans of America. And we are also pleased to welcome Mr. M. Donald Pimerini, whom I know, a friend of mine. I know him very well, former colleague in teaching, and he is Chairman of the Leominster Historical Commission. And also in our studio today, though not on camera, is his lovely wife, Nancy. We're going to begin by the format of today's special show of Neighborhood Snapshot, Those Who Serve, will be two segments. The first segment will focus on Command Sergeant Major Dickinson, but Dick and Don will converse with Sergeant Major, and then we'll transition into the second segment, which will be with Dick Early. So I'm sure the Leominster audience is interested, the LATV audience is interested in learning a little bit more about Sergeant Major Dickinson. In civilian life, she is a wife, and she's the next door neighbor of Don and Nancy, but we're not going to focus on her civilian life. She is recently back from service in Iraq, and she has an extensive background. She's originally from St. Cloud, Minnesota, and she settled in Massachusetts after an active duty tour at Fort Devens. She has over, and I'm reading this very extensive biographical information, which is very wonderful. She has over 27 years of military service between the Army, 2 enlistments, and the Army Reserves and the Army National Guard. She began her career as a member of the Women's Army Corps in the WACS, W-A-C-S, yes. The WACS, in April of 1975. And she has had many jobs and assignments since then. Power generator operator and repairer in the Army, personnel specialist, the Army Reserves, Morse code interceptor and instructor in the Army, administrative specialist in the National Guard, supply sergeant in the National Guard, administrative supervisor, National Guard, materiel management sergeant, National Guard, equal opportunity advisor, National Guard, and command sergeant, her present assignment, Command Sergeant Major in the National Guard. And we have somebody very special. We have, all these people are special today, but the first female Sergeant Major in the National Guard in the state of Massachusetts. She graduated in the top 10% of the Sergeant Major's Academy in June 1999. The first female Command Sergeant Major, is that in the whole
state of Massachusetts?
In the state of Massachusetts. And myself not having served in the military, and I'm sure that members of the audience have this question: what's the difference between a sergeant and a sergeant major, a command sergeant major? I know that a command sergeant major is higher, but what exactly is a command sergeant major?
A sergeant major and a command sergeant major are both E9s, but when you enter the command area of being a command sergeant major, you're in a battalion level or higher. So you have more responsibilities of running the battalion, which encompasses more soldiers.
Are you a top sergeant?
I think I am, yes.
Okay, is that what,
Yes.
in other words, in terms
Yes,
of...
I'm the highest senior enlisted in the battalion.
And then above you would be the officer.
I work for the lieutenant colonel, who's the battalion commander.
So you have a very big responsibility, a
Yes.
very big responsibility. Just a little bit continuing on the biographical information, which is pertinent. In February of 2003, she was the command sergeant major selected from a list of 5 command sergeant majors for mobilization to Iraq with the 726th Maintenance Battalion out of Natick, Mass. You are now stationed in,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
in Leominster. As a command sergeant major, the first and foremost duties are taking care of the soldier. In Iraq, the battalion had up to 9 companies under the 726th Command with 800 plus soldiers. They went to Iraq as a maintenance battalion, but because of changing needs on the base, their assignment changed to include becoming a base support operations battalion within 2 months of arriving in Iraq. She's a well-educated woman, civilian, went to Anna Maria College, a bachelor's in business administration, associate's degree from Quincy College, a very well qualified. Do I salute?
No, I'm enlisted.
Unenlisted.
Yeah.
We're honored, as I said, to have you and to have Richard. And one of the comments I made is your primary duty, your first and foremost duty as a command sergeant major is taking care of the soldier, and we'll learn later on that's Richard's vocation too, in his position. Colleen and Don and Dick will also ask questions also, but and they'll feel free to chime in when you have something. It's just a conversation amongst us. But I'm going to ask the first question. What part of Iraq were you stationed in, or was it a variety of places?
Our battalion was mainly stationed in the southern part of Iraq on an air base. We did have maintenance support teams that were in the northern part of Iraq.
Are there any particular large Iraqi cities that we might be familiar with from the news?
One city is Al-Nasiriyah, where there was the sad event of the Italian police station bombing. So that'll put that into perspective of where we were.
In miles, approximately, how far from Baghdad?
5 hours.
5 hours away from Baghdad. It's a huge country.
Very.
It's a huge country.
Lots of desert.
Lots of desert. In our little chit-chat out there, you mentioned the temperature, which caused some mouths to drop.
At one point in the summer, the temperature reached 156 degrees. Being the first units at the air base, things had not gelled the way that we probably had wished they had. We had no ice then, so cooling the water became a science experiment of taking the wet sock and putting the bottle of water into the wet sock and driving around a little bit to cool the water off.
Wow, 156 Fahrenheit.
Yes, but on an average it was between 130 and 140 for a few months.
It's hard to, and with all your equipment and
right.
Carrying out your duties.
We worked a lot after the hours of 4 in the afternoon. A lot of the soldiers who worked in the bays without any air circulation stopped work at about 11. Not stopped, but they slowed down considerably.
What was the maintenance battalions, what was your main mission? And I know it changed after.
It did. We continued on with that mission even when it changed. We're a direct support maintenance battalion, so we had units, and this was unusual for us too. We had quartermaster units under a maintenance battalion. So we really became diversified in our duties there. But our main duties was the direct support maintenance. So people that were on the base brought their vehicles to our companies underneath us to be taken care of.
And by vehicles, all types of military vehicles?
All types.
From
all types, from the Humvees up to the big Hemet wreckers.
And tanks in between and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yes, yeah. Even down to the radios.
The works?
Yes.
The works. Richard, any?
Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome home.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job, and it's a very difficult, and I think veterans understand how difficult and dedicated people are who elect to serve. But, of course, every time I see a sergeant major, I think I should get a haircut and shine my shoes.
They look fine.
Old things die slowly. And my only other initial comment is at Fort Devens, I was there in the Army Security Agency.
So was I.
05H, so
Yeah.
diddy bopper to you. Anyway, that's another story. I'm interested in the dynamics of the new military force, primarily the mix of regular Army, reserves, and National Guard. And I'm curious on how you feel that mix of histories blends to get the job done.
Under our battalion, having up to 9 units, we had at one time all facets. Reserve units, we had another National Guard unit with us, we had active duty units. It was amazing to see the diversification of the Reserve and the National Guard soldiers because they bring their civilian skills with them to war, anywhere they go. With the active duty, it seemed that they were really pigeonholed in what they did for their jobs. They never stepped out of the box, to put the cliche there of doing things that were out of the norm for them. So when we received air conditioners, we received containers full of air conditioners. The Army National Guard, because we have other skills of air conditioning, of being electronics, of being electricians, we just took the ball and ran with it and took the lead of installing air conditioners, which were a godsend when we finally received them, into all the places where we worked, into the tents, the sleeping tents, in all of our offices. So it was really amazing to see the things that we could do.
So who'd you have to know to get an air conditioner?
We were the
Seemed
ones,
like a-
because we had...
You could train one of those for just about anything.
Really. We took the lead, really, of the whole project.
Yeah.
And because we took the lead, we were the test office. So, yeah, we got air conditioners right away.
Oh, that's a good thing. Did, on a personal level, on the personal dynamics, the acceptance of the regular Army, of the National Guard and Reservists, did that blend pretty quickly? Was that the full-time soldier versus the part-time soldier and that sort of thing? Did that?
We had a newspaper on the airbase where we were at, and one of the questions to the Army was, how do you feel about the Reserve and the National Guard now? And this was after we'd worked together for a couple months. And they were amazed at how we accomplished things and that they would work with us again. I said, well, you know, should we put the other shoe on the foot? Would we work with you again? And we would. The Army brings qualities because they have the full-time training. They can go and do their range qualifications right away, where we have to make sure that yearly we can accomplish what we need to become ready and stay ready.
Because it's a uniquely different style of waging war.
It is.
In the history of this country. And I've been impressed with the quality of the individuals who are now serving in the military. I mean, they're outstanding, smart, dedicated, focused, and it's really been impressive to me, and it must be great for you to have command of motivated people. I mean, it just...
It is. There's education areas that all the soldiers have to meet to make their next rank and to stay in the military. So the education is there, and it has to be there. It isn't something you can walk into without knowledge of even accomplishing your job and your rank.
Now, your interaction with the indigenous in Iraq, how did that work once the war was over? Whatever George Bush said that I'm not going to get in it, but a year ago, once the occupation, I mean, how was the dynamics between the U.S. military and the indigenous personnel?
I had when I left 38 Iraqis working for me and with our soldiers. Because we became a base support operations battalion, we had to take on all the base support. So it was running the burn pit, doing the portalet contract, to have people come in to maintain our portalets that we finally got after burning our feces for about 3 months.
Now, what are the portalets? Are the porta potties?
Portalets are, yes, yeah,
Toilets.
Johnny, yeah, toilets.
Okay.
We also had a beautification team, we called them, because they came in and did the police calls, and it gave soldiers time to do their own jobs besides all the details that were needed on the base. So we hired through this commission that's set up in Iraq the 38 locals to work with us. So I had some working at the AFES, which was the PX, the supermarket for the Army, well, for all of the coalition forces that were there. And then we had 28 of them working on base details doing the beautification project. So they were planting trees again, picking up the trash around the base, tons of water bottles, because the wind, the sandstorms come and everything seems to get blown around. So they were kept very, very, very busy. And when we had a project that was needed at one of the units, they would call and make an appointment with these locals, and we had to escort them there and watch them and be there for them if they needed us. So it was quite for me it was rewarding to learn more about their culture, to learn more about their language, about their humor that they had while they worked. They were good workers. I had a really good time, and I learned a lot from them.
Now, what about the other thing we hear about in the news is civilian contractors and the reliance on civilian contractors. Where does a civilian contractor fit into the command mix in a situation like Iraq?
We did have the contracting association with us at the air base. They ran the dining facility, which after a summer of living off of MREs and T-rats, we lost quite a bit of weight. Well, we all put it back on after the dining facility opened. But they still use the soldiers there to escort the third country nationals that worked there. And those were people from Egypt and Pakistan, but they worked for the contractor. The contractor also ran a dumpster detail that we had. A lot of different areas. They ran the power generation units, which I was the mayor of a bed-down unit which housed 2,000 soldiers. And the keeping together the generators going when they're continuous through dust storms and the heat was a phenomenal thing to do. And the soldiers that were doing it did an outstanding job of keeping the Band-Aids on the generators to keep everything going, and the light sets. And so when the contractor came in, they set up this big power station, and that alleviated us from this detail of having to keep all this stuff going. So they bring more to where we were because they were allowing our soldiers to do their actual jobs and get things done. So.
Well, I have a question for you, okay? To further what you introduced, Bob, I met Colleen quite a few years ago, and I have to explain to Dick how I met her. Well, I had seen her out in the yard. She's my neighbor. But one day she came home from work, and she came from the backyard, and she knocked on the back door. And you have to realize that I was an enlisted man too at one time. And there was personnel in the battalion that you showed a lot of respect for. And being a young kid when I was in the Army, you do show a lot of respect. Well, I opened the back door, and there stands a sergeant major. in full uniform with all her regalia. You know what I did, Dick? I stood at attention because
You're a fine
really,
soldier.
well, it's been a long time
Yeah.
since I was in the service, but you still have that within you. You still show respect for the person in uniform, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And that's why I'm here today, because she's come home from Iraq, and she's done her duty, and we all tend to do our duty, if you're an American citizen anyways. But I do have some questions I'd like to ask her. That when I was in the service, back in 46, 47, 48, we did other things than just normal duty. And after a while, you get tired of normal duty, so you kind of go off on your own. And I'm sure Colleen did. She must have visited areas. I used to do a lot of hunting in Korea because we had the weapons to do it, and there was plenty of game around. And so I'm sure that I used to go into old monasteries and the Buddhist temples, you know, just to get acquainted with the country of Korea. I'm sure you must have done the same thing in Iraq. Can you tell us about some of those encounters and perhaps some of the people that you met?
We did a couple of humanitarian projects, and one was the schools. When we went out, we did have to have gunships, which were the vehicles, the Humvees that were up-armored, and we had to make sure we had enough security to go out with us. But we took the soldiers out, and we went to the schools, and we would bring school supplies, animals, stuffed animals and toys and things to them. The most touching one was the last one that I went to before I left, and it was my sister had sent quite a few things from Minnesota, and we made these packages up, and this little girl had this doll, and it was an older doll with a crochet dress, and I'm sure many of the people that have done church bazaars and things will remember these crochet dresses on these dolls. But this girl was just so tickled to get this. She came up and gave me a big hug, and it was, "Thank you, Mrs. Thank you so much for coming here." So this is a school without electricity, without running water. After the mud season, the rainy season, the ground gets really hard, and that was the floor of their school building. So we also did a humanitarian with an orphanage that was a boys' orphanage, a babies' and a girls' orphanage. And the funny thing in a way with that was the engineers were from Wisconsin, were stationed with us at this air base, and they were also working this humanitarian project with us, along with a lot of other units. And they replaced the counters and put cabinets and stuff in the kitchens and new floors, and we put furniture in there, and we bought the kids beds, and all kinds of comforters and stuff were sent from the United States from people that wanted to donate. So the kitchens were gorgeous, better than the one I have at home. And we had went in, finished the project, went in the next time to see them, and the women were still chopping the vegetables on the floor. So it was amazing to see that, but that's their culture. That's the way they do it. So that was one other project that we had worked on. But to go into the markets and things within Iraq, we didn't do that because we didn't want to place, you never want to go somewhere where there's always a chance of danger. So we didn't go into the marketplaces and things.
So you're saying that it is still dangerous, and you had to move around with armored vehicles.
Yes.
Just to explore?
We went out when the mission called for it. Yeah. We had, if anyone remembers outside of Army bases or any base, how the towns become built up around the bases. And one town that becomes familiar is Wrightstown in New Jersey. We became sort of a little Wrightstown outside of our base because they came in and set up little markets. And they had names like America Market, what were some of the others? Just funny names that spun off of the American markets. But they had things that you could buy their pita breads with chickens and vegetable in it, and little laundromats sprung up outside. And so it's like anywhere. They come where they...
Were you able to go shopping at all for material that you could send home or anything like that?
My nickname there was Command Shopping Major, by the way. I got that name because wherever I went, I seemed to buy something. And I did buy 8 rugs while I was there, and I sent them home to my husband, and I'm sure you saw them as they came in, as he put them up into the attic for me to come home. So we did buy things off the market, but we didn't go out where there were any consequences of any type of danger out. But we did go out when we all got to Kuwait, into Kuwait City as a group. So,
Colleen, you mentioned the humanitarian things, wonderful things that the service people did. The news we get in America is generally negative. Casualties and various things, and that pretty much is a constant barrage of media. But aren't there a lot of positive things that are going on that we in the United States never hear of? And obviously the humanitarian things were very positive. But what about some of the, I hear things like building of infrastructure and electricity and...
That's all happening, and you don't hear about those things. You don't hear about the new schools being built. You don't hear about the medical units going in and helping to build hospitals and going in and just going into the villages to give shots and medical checkups and things like that.
Because for many years under Saddam Hussein, I mean the general populace was denied all of these things. It was there's a lot of good. There are many good things too.
We were stationed with a Korean engineering unit and a hospital unit, and they, along with our engineers, rebuilt the hospital where we were at. So there's a lot of good going on that the media doesn't show.
Portray. Richard mentioned the relationship between the Guard and the regular Army. In our little conversation out in the anteroom, you had mentioned that even before nowadays, which is a very good thing, that you were made aware of the availability of veteran services earlier rather than once you were out. And this is so we can maybe sort of transition between you and Richard. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, in my position, I receive a lot of information on what's available for the soldiers. And one thing we received early out, within 4 months of being there, was an email. And that was another great thing to have while we were there, was email and phone availability, was the name of our representative for the Veterans Administration. So that was very good to get because we could contact her and receive more information. And the steps along the way of redeploying out of Iraq. We had a briefing before we left Iraq, we had a briefing before we left Kuwait, and we also had one when we reached Fort Dix for the ending of our deployment on everything that was available. And they signed us right up when we got to Milford, Mass, to finish off our deploying. We were right there. The Veterans Administration was there with tables, information. They signed us right up, got us ready for all our Veterans Administration, all our veterans benefits.
Which is, I don't know.
I already have an appointment for this Tuesday for a physical.
So and Richard could speak to this more than I, and you could speak to this also, but, and Dawn's service was in Korea, but is that something new, relatively new, where now, while people are being transitioned out, that this knowledge
Well, I
is being
think
available?
we've learned from the past, where the services, which the unique thing about veterans is they earn the benefit. You have to do something to be a veteran, and so that's a critical difference in any other program that is taxpayer funded. These people earn it and they deserve it. I think we always want to make that very clear. It's the only program that is an earned benefit by any American who's willing to put on the uniform. Historically, we as a country, after Korea and Vietnam, which I call the dawn of modern warfare, which is not as clean and well understood as World War II. Hitler was a bad guy, we go get the bad guy, we're the good guys. It was very clear there was a beginning and a middle and the end. People understood that. Veterans' benefits after World War II were extraordinary. I mean, the rebuilding of America after World War II was because of the GI Bill and veterans becoming highly educated. We would not be the technological leader in the world today if it was not for the GI Bill after World War II. Most of these opportunities for veterans are still there, but they're diminished in their impact. They're much diminished. And we have to be careful as voters to make sure that we provide the services for veterans because they're the people that know what it's about. Generally, a veteran is more sophisticated, more worldly, and more directed because they have had the experience of being somewhere, meeting all kinds of people, and they're goal-oriented. So the VA healthcare system and the people I represent with claims for service-connected disabilities and that sort of thing has been mandated by Congress to reach out. Underfunded, however, but mandated to reach out. We don't want to happen to the veterans now what happened after Vietnam, where we were so sick of that war, I mean it went on for over 10 years, that we as a society just shut it off. It's over, it's done, and that's the end of it. Very difficult for veterans to receive services or feel that they were welcome for the services. And veterans are a proud group of people, and they don't want to feel like they're begging for things. So I think it's a good thing. And the only problem now is the funding of it. The other thing is that to treat issues relative to service, the sooner the better. Because 20, 30 years down the line, gee, I hurt my back in the Army and it really hurts now, it's a chronic issue and it's not acute. The other issue that I don't think is met with returning veterans is employment and hiring veterans. I would suggest every employer at the top of their list hire a veteran. They're highly trained, they're sophisticated, they're honest, they know what work is, they know what it means to show up. And I think we're really missing the boat. For every single employer, the first thing they should do is say, we want a veteran to serve. Now, a command sergeant major, and I want people to be aware of this, a command sergeant major literally runs the Army. I mean, they don't just work there. They're not a cog in the wheel. They are at the point, and they do run the Army, and it's extraordinary. And if I ran a business, I would hire a command sergeant major to run it. Why? Because they've done it, and they know how to, and it's a people business too, you know, and it has to do with all the things that we think as entrepreneurs is important. So that's my little speech about that. And her people are really, really quality people.
Mm-hmm.
The educational benefits need to be improved so they can really take the opportunity to get that bachelor's, master's, and PhD. We have to look at that at both the state and the national level to make sure that they can do that in today's world. Because young people today are stressed financially. You know, it costs money to live, and school is no longer a free item. It isn't. And so you have veterans who could really be full-time students who are going part-time.
I'd like to throw a bouquet that I picked up the other day regarding Colleen. I was in the city clerk's office, and I was doing some business there, and this man was present, perhaps in his 30s, and he was showing some money, Iraq money, to the clerks in the office, and I overheard them talking, so I said, "Do you know a Colleen Dickinson?" And he perked right up. He says, "You mean Sergeant Major Dickinson?" And I said, "Yes, the best Sergeant Major in Iraq."
Yeah.
He couldn't say enough for her. She knows how to run a battalion, and everybody respects her.
Yeah.
With the Massachusetts National Guard, would you offer 100% tuition for enlisting in the National Guard. So that's one thing that younger people and even middle-aged people can look at, where we pay for schools. If it's a state college, they pay 100%.
And they do that also for veterans. But now, my gripe with that is tuition is a very small part of the
sure
cost
is.
because the state legislature mandates you can't raise tuition. So therefore, there are fees for everything that equal or more than equal the tuition. So I would like to see these people have complete free education. Thank you very much for your service. You've done a wonderful job. Go to college. Come back when you've graduated. I mean, it's just a resource. Veterans are a resource, and now less than 1% of the population is in the military. Leominster High School, very few will elect the military. So it's not a block, a political block like after World War II. Everybody was a veteran. Now, it's a very small population, so the rest of us have to pay attention to what they've done and what they've earned to make it happen. And I'm just really think we don't want to miss this opportunity to take these people, because what a valuable resource it is for everybody.
Well, Richard, I'm a product of the GI Bill. I got my education from the GI Bill. So I know what you're talking about.
Another success story. But it's important
Very, very.
that we invest in people who will contribute. Less than 10% of those who serve in the military ever receive any benefit from the government. And those that need it and deserve it should get it, no questions asked. And now over 20,000 veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan have applied for benefits through the VA. And 60% of all who have applied are now reservists and National Guardsmen. So it's a huge change in the dynamics of that service system that we have to make sure that we adjust to. And there's some conflicting things there that have to be addressed, and we as citizens have to pay attention to that, because these people do extraordinary work for us. It's
They surely
amazing.
do.
And it's a
Surely
tough
do.
job. Today's world, it's a tough job. Congratulations to you and
Yes.
your crew.
Thank you. Yeah, they did an outstanding job.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask another question to Colleen, and that is, you were also in another country, Colleen, Kuwait, and that's south of Iraq. Did you have any R&R there, or was it a little less stressful or anything like that?
It was a lot less stressful. We were at a naval base where we were preparing to leave, so we were right on the Persian Gulf. And it was beautiful, because when we finished all the things we needed to, there were a few days lag time where I just took a book and went to the beach. So it was a lot less stressful.
Did you know that more luxury yachts are sold in the Persian Gulf than anywhere in the world? It's another little known secret. There's some money there in the
It is
oil,
beautiful there.
in the oil, yeah.
But
Bahrain and other
how about the
places.
attitude of the Kuwaiti people? Are they friendly or,
Oh, yes.
or
yes.
indifferent?
I had my language book out there, and a lot of them know English. They will come up and talk with you. So it's the most important thing I got out of this whole trip was learning about all the cultures and the differences in the cultures. Even between the Kuwaitis and the Iraqis, there's a difference. So, but it was very nice learning their history and their cultures.
Well, Colleen and Dick and Don, this has, to me personally, been very, very informative and enjoyable. Nearing the conclusion of this interview, I would like to note that, and Dick reminded us of it out in the anteroom, that some veterans-related events are coming up. He mentioned Leominster High School, and when he said that, I thought of the Legacy Project. And next to Don, there's a poster of the Civil War, a nation divided, a union preserved, the passing of the legacy. Could Dick inform us a little bit about the Legacy Project and some other events that are upcoming related to veterans?
Next week is Memorial Day, And it's the day set aside to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, who were killed in action. And we should never, ever forget them, ever. And it's a solemn time, and we want to make sure that, and Leominster's been very good on taking a moment. The twilight service is on May 28th at 6 o'clock at the Veterans Center, and Memorial Day begins at 8 in the morning and hits every cemetery, culminating down here. More than 22 Massachusetts veterans have been killed. And we don't want to ever forget that, and we're going to pay special tribute to them at the twilight service. And Sergeant Liddy will be the speaker on Memorial Day, who is also recently returned reservist from Iraq. So, and then the Wednesday before that, of course, is the brick dedication at Carter Park on Wednesday. Yeah, great job. Well over 1,400 bricks down there, and there's some new ones.
Now, though, could you tell us something for the listening viewing public? The people can buy a brick to be installed.
You can buy a brick to be installed in Carter Park, which is one of the oldest mustering grounds in America. It's an amazingly treasured piece of ground down there. They've mustered there since before the Revolutionary War. Just extraordinary that it hadn't become a parking lot. Somebody did the right thing, or we were just dumb luck or something that that's still there. The bricks to veterans are lining the walkways, so it doesn't take from the openness of the mustering ground. And anyone can buy a brick, $40. Realty team here on Monument Square.
Century 21.
Does that, Century
Nick stores,
21.
Nick and Jean stores.
John Bikey, who's also the commanding of the American Legion, does that program. And it's a great way to remember a veteran. You do it, it's done. So that's what's going on this weekend. The Legacy Project, which won the national award from the National Conference of Mayors, is doing the Civil War, as we said, in honor of Don's service during that period of time under President Lincoln. We don't want to dwell on that. But this year, and we've done World War II, Korea, Vietnam, women veterans. This year, the Civil War. Children are involved with the reenactors, the 15th reenactors, so that they can have the experience of being a Civil War soldier, so they can come back and teach 8th graders who studied Civil War about what it's like to be a veteran during the Civil War. Because the goal of the Legacy program is make an intergenerational contact between the young generation and the older generation, which in America is extremely difficult. Our elders, we put them in assisted living and they're gone. We don't really take the opportunity to learn from history. So I think this is as you would say, a segue to the Historical Commission, that we're really trying to facilitate this kind of knowledge from generation to generation here in this city. So it works real good.
To expand that a little bit, Dick, adjacent to Carter Park, there's a cemetery called Pine Grove Cemetery. And you recall that there are 78 Revolutionary War veterans buried there. It's one of the largest group of Revolutionary soldiers in Massachusetts. The other thing I want to expand on is what Bob mentioned earlier, that this talk that we're going through right now will probably be incorporated into the history book of Leominster. Now, the commission is putting together, under the office of the mayor, a history of Leominster. And it's rather involved, and we're going to use a lot of the information that Bob has put together in all the neighborhood talks, but we also have a committee that's working on this. But part of this new history will be incorporated into the book. Whether it's going to be on the printed page or on the CD, we haven't made that decision as yet. But there's a whole group of people working on this.
That's a great project.
Well, we hope so. We hope so, because we haven't had a history book since 1853. We've had some pictorial things, but now we're becoming very serious about it.
I've always said about every 150 years you ought to update it.
Yes.
Just to conclude, one final thing, and Dick, you can mention this, something on a national level in Washington, D.C. is happening very soon related to World War II veterans.
Yes, the Saturday Memorial Day weekend, they're dedicating the World War II monument in Washington, D.C., and that's been a long time coming, and of course surrounded with the controversy as everything is. And
with the setup of it,
it's a great
design of it, but
it's a great antecedent to that period of our history,
And-
which was probably the defining moment in the last century. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the defining moment, so.
And
It's a good thing.
So
Well,
well.
just to further that a little bit, Bob has been doing some research about the number of person that died in the city of Leominster
Yeah.
during that Second World War engagement was,
And I think it was 90.
Yeah.
90 who gave the, who
We have those,
gave
we
their
have
lives.
those people
just
listed
in the
our
little
World War
town
II
of
book.
Leominster.
Oh, yeah.
Town of Leominster. Yeah.
Yeah.
90 who gave their lives
Yeah.
in the service of the country, and so many others who served. And there were many who wanted to serve and who couldn't serve for one reason or another. But all of this in the special LATV special, those who serve. Finally, the World War II memorial is being dedicated. But all of the veterans who have served during peacetime, wartime, it's so, and you see the connections and the tie-in between the Legacy Project and our culture in general today. Memorial Day is coming up, and in the word itself, memorial, remember, we enjoy our freedoms because people put their lives on the line, and they deserve, those who have served deserve, as you so articulately expressed, Dick, the veteran services, and Colleen, Sergeant Major, and Don. We are so appreciative of this. This is very, very I thank you. Again, honored to have you here. To conclude, I want to say again, official, formal thank you to Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major Colleen Dickinson, and Richard Early, Veterans Agent Richard Early, and Chairman Don Pimarini of the Leominster Historic Commission. Thank you very much. Thank you, Don.